Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our latest episode. We're going to have a lot to talk about today in 10 minutes. Happy to join you, and we're going to focus a little bit on the headline news that we saw this week around the immediate, like the cloud Mythos and Project Glasswing that came out, but also pivot into what really matters today. And I'm not here by myself. I'm John Fulker, VP of Threat Intelligence Strategy. I'm joined with Ilya. Ilya, welcome.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here with you today, John.
Great. Well, dive straight in. So, last week's news, why Mythos mattered. There was a project launched, Project Glasswing, which was interesting because, Mythos was a threshold passing model because it has autonomous abilities to discover security vulnerabilities and that would otherwise normally trigger Anthropic's internal safety protocols. Funny story, like we do a lot with our AI and we run into this all the time when we do our malware research as well. So this is interesting. And they chose to restrict this instead of publicly release it. So it's a limited release, not a mass release. But if all the takeaway is what you get from this is it signals that the exploit development cycle will increase. So the time, it matters. It's a broader shift, right? AI will compress the attacker timelines. And the real significance here is it's not one model, but it says about the shrinking gap between finding a flaw and acting on it. And this is something that is a fact. And yes, this is limited, so it's not distributed globally, but this is something we can expect. However, what we want to pivot in today, and I'm very happy to have you here, Ilya, is that what matters today for a lot of enterprises is like, yes, we know that this is coming, but there's still a lot of untrusted software in the supply chain. And that's that feeding ground where a project like this could actually benefit from. Like the project like this will use that, as you call, target-rich environment with all those potential flaws to take advantage of. But companies and organizations nowadays are still leveraging software that has flaws. So there's a lot they can do today. And something we would like to focus on is supply chain management. It is really real. And we've been like with our second side initiative, like the monitoring that we're doing and the threat hunting, we've been looking at the Axios NPM supply chain management attack chain in the last couple of weeks. And a software supply chain can offer attackers trust, reach, and actually a potential really, really large downstream impact because there's a lot of organizations leveraging these software packages blindly almost. So the fallout or the impact can be gigantic. And open source systems move fast, but it's also creating a lot of dependencies. And what we saw is like one compromised package can affect many, many downstream organizations. And it could be multiple attacks because NPM we saw with Trivi, we saw with other NPM attacks with Shai Halud. And in this case, it was an identity abuse. Packages were tempered. It was updated. The malicious updates were there, and it launched into a very large scale of organizations being impacted. So it does show that, like, yes, Mythos and Project Glasswing is very impactful, and that's things that we're facing in the future. But what's important for organizations to know is like, this is what you're dealing with right now, and that's a lot. So let's focus a little bit on the IOCs, because there's a lot that we saw actually using our Helix platform. So we were monitoring our Helix platform with Second Sight, and we're able to detect a couple of these compromises. And Ilya, what can you tell us about this slide? Because your team has been very much involved on the hunting part with Helix on this one.
Yeah, good question. So sitting on this like perspective between the different detection controls and pillars from network to endpoint to Helix that's stitched together, kind of multiple perspectives and logs from different platforms, we're able to actually very effectively use the indicators of this compromise in order to hunt down and identify and unfortunately compromised boxes and organizations. So we've been very prompt at detecting those, and due to this massive success, we've been able to identify, report, summarize everything, and notify our victims. And I think it just reiterates the story of the importance of indicators. All good threat intelligence, if integrated correctly, I think you can really cover, John, this part and share your vision on how the indicators should be integrated in the modern security operations.
Yeah, IOC's atomic indicators are like your fundamental baseline, right? That's the fundament on which you build. So don't underestimate the importance of these things. And yes, once an attacker is on the machine and they're fully into the network and they're putting like almost hands on keyboard, it becomes more sophisticated. But a general rule of thumb that we see a lot is like when there's an exploitation en masse or like a supply chain attack like this, or it's like what we saw in the past with some of the Hafnium attacks, you would see that the first state's implant is very generic. So we will see that across a multitude of install bases. So like a lot of times there's a very sophisticated exploitation, and then the first instance, because it's so large scale, is often a common implant. And that's where your indicators, your IOCs really could benefit, because you could easily scan across your network to see like, hey, do we see any network traffic? Do we have any binaries installed, any web shells, any other stuff as well? And that could help you have an ample detection capability. But it also goes, I think, you're probably going to touch upon it, like, please note which package you have installed in this case, which NPM package, because yes, IOCs are very valuable, but still you want to rule out that nobody else is compromising from this supply chain and using it as a launch point into your network. When you want to talk about detection strategy, Ilya, you've created this very intricate slide here. So can you walk us through this?
Absolutely. John, we just declared that trust within software is broken, and static analysis fails against modern supply chain because it's complex, right? You can never know what dependency will reside within your package that you even deliberately didn't import in the first place, but it depends on another sort of dependency tree behind the scenes. So I guess the attack chain in this case was relatively simple. I think if we start from the first point, it was an identity compromise and then a dependency injection. Then we had a malware that was delivered across actually the three major platforms. So Mac, Linux, and Windows were impacted by this rat, and it was delivered and executed in no time. It was just a fraction of a few seconds. And then what we see is the impact of this attack. The impact was centered around credential harvesting. And in this case, files that store secrets like AWS and SSH were harvested and exfiltrated in this case, unfortunately. But what we want to do about those is we want to deploy defense strategies that last, okay? Indicators are only go this far and they are very specific. But if we were to set up our defense architecture in the right way, we would be able to get ahead of such threats in the future. So if we look at process tree anomalies, we can definitely spot that NPM was executing bash scripts and the execution time was very close to the actual installation and an update. Then we want to monitor for any anomalous access to our credential stores. This is something that we need to really protect, right? And our old and traditional egress baselining. So when it comes to the egress baselining, we really want to build that infrastructure intelligence. We do want to monitor or set up our allow list for known good domains. We want to monitor for domain age and create that intelligence. And obviously the statistical beacon analysis will help here to identify that something is calling back to the server. I think it was a really good high level breakdown of how this attack chain can be paired with defense strategies. And I would encourage us to continue the conversation around how to build a defense architecture for supply chain.
It sounds like you're talking about defense in depth, Ilya.
maybe.
I think we put down some really, really key points here. So can you walk us through quickly these 5 key points?
Absolutely. So when we talk about our recommendations, the first one would be definitely to make sure that we rotate all the secrets. We don't allow a long-lived token to be operating within your environment, okay? All the dependencies have to be mapped, and as a new dependency come up, it should be flagged, it should be reviewed and approved. So our software supply chain, we get back control around it, and we really understand what's running within our environment. We do want to spot any suspicious install times and runtime behaviors. As we mentioned, those anomalous trees, upon installation and execution, if we see an anomalous process, this is a big thing, right? And you definitely need to be prioritizing incidents with such tags that are related to software supply chain attack, because this can evolve into a big mess. And maybe just from a Trellix perspective, we are positioning our Trellix Wise as an integrated platform for such a composite analysis, because we have multiple controls, we have multiple pillars that we can monitor and we can benefit from. I think we can execute hyper automation capabilities in terms of response, and we can provide contextual analysis and direct integration to our native threat intelligence. I think it's a big differentiator here.
That's an excellent point. And if I hear correctly, one of the key takeaways, if we go back to where we started 10 minutes ago, it's like AI is compressing timelines for the attacker, right? It's going to make it more compact. We, as defenders, need to leverage AI to compress the detection and response timelines. And that's kind of the key takeaway. And one of these ways that we do it within Trellix is, yes, we use multiple signals, we use multiple platforms, we have our second side, but also a key element is our AI strategy with Trellix Wise. And with this, I think we are at the end of our short section. So thank you again, Ilya, for your super, super valuable insights. I would, if people want to learn more about Trellix Wise or anything we do from threat intelligence or our response capability, check out our website. And I hope to see everyone in the next episode. Thank you all.
Thank you.